traps. Yes, we will talk about those. Yes.
George, thanks so much for being on the Jeff and Bill Show.
Morning.
You bet. Thanks for having me.
All right, so you're running against Tammy Story. That's a name in this community. House District 25. Why are you going to be better than Tammy Story?
Well, my opponent ran in our district. She's the current representative. She's aligned herself with the far left activists, leaving the majority of our district out of the decision-making process. Over the past 6 years, she sponsored, co-sponsored, and supported legislation that makes my community and school less safe, limits the school options for the families here, and reduces legal tax refunds for hardworking taxpayers. She also stated in this latest session that she didn't think we paid enough in property taxes. Having grown up in this House district, I have a problem with that, and I believe my constituents do too, at least from the phone calls I'm getting.
Yeah, I would say so. She was on that effort to, local approval of property tax initiatives to essentially try to weaken Tabor, or at least weaken efforts to lower taxes by allowing people to put those initiatives on the ballot. Oh, my goodness. Now, you're not in a super progressive district. This was Colin Larson's district. He lost by, less than 1,000 votes in 2022. So this is one that Republicans can seize back, right?
That's my hope. I'm working really hard to make that happen. It's time for us to have a voice at the table, a voice that represents the constituents here. And this is a unique district. I've got the mountain folks and I've got the folks out on the flats, and they're unique in the things that they would like to see happen, and they're just not getting that voice.
House District 25 is a part of Jefferson County, and it runs along the kind of western side. So you got Evergreen, Aspen Park, Pine Junction, but like you mentioned, it goes over onto the eastern side, right along C-470 there, and it looks like you have parts just outside Columbine. Carroll is part of the district as well there, right?
Correct. So if you come down C-470 to Dutch Creek, which is just before you get to Ken Carroll, the district jogs back over toward Bowles and back out to Wadsworth. So I've got a pretty diverse group in there with a number of precincts that have their own concerns.
Yeah, this should be a Republican district, but, that's the way Colorado deals with it. Now, I've got to ask you this question. George, you want to spend time down at the state capitol in the minority. God love you. But talk about this calling that you feel to run for office, try to stem the craziness happening down there at the Colorado State Capitol.
Well, absolutely. And if you look at the history, I know you quoted part of it, and thanks for correcting the portion about my oldest son, the Green Beret. But I've got a history of being able to talk to folks and get things to happen. And I'm jumping back in the fire after retirement. So it's the only way I think we can get things done is be able to at least sit down, reach across the aisle, and have a decent conversation. When I built the assessment center in Jefferson County, it was difficult to bring mental health, human services, the school district, and law enforcement together. But we did it. We became a federal model, and which is still that way today. And I think that's important. And I think I have that voice. Is it going to be difficult? Like you just said, yes, it's not going to be easy. But I think I'm the guy for the job.
You got a good leadership team, too. I'm a fan of Rose Puglisi. She's the top Republican in the Colorado House of Representatives right now. She's doing a great job. Has simmered down some of the internal tension that has typically been taking place down there among Republicans. Seems to have put together the Mighty 19, and hopefully adding you will be the Mighty 20, maybe some additional ones, but to get some work done. Let's talk about your agenda. What are you going to deliver for the people of House District 25?
Well, the biggest concern right now, at least the folks that are reaching out to me, which has been a lot, is they're concerned about the economy and the grocery prices, the gas prices. We've got a lot of auto theft down here in the Flats area, in the southern end, mid-southern end of my district. And the problem is that all relates back to the criminal justice system. So when we dumbed down the criminal justice system with 217 a few years back, took qualified immunity from law enforcement, the proactive law enforcement went away. Then we dumbed down some of the judicial process. We took felonies, made them misdemeanors. Now we let these people out. We don't prosecute at the same level we used to, so there's no consequences to deal with the crimes that are occurring. When you take all that stuff away, all of a sudden somebody has to pay. And unfortunately, that becomes the folks in my House district. I got a phone call the other day from Safeway down near me, and they said these people are walking out with baskets full of groceries and other things. And when we call the sheriff's department, we have to make a death report. We don't have the time to do that. So the case goes unreported. The grocery store chains then bump the prices to pay for the losses, and that comes back to my constituents. So it's a full circle game that's going to have to be addressed. I'm not saying that I'm going to change everything because I don't think I can do that, but at least it brings a common sense piece back to this, get our law enforcement officers doing the part that they can. The next thing is the schools. Right now in Jefferson County, I'm sure you've been reading all the things that are going on. They've got a C and D rating for their children and what they're doing, and they're applauding that. But my constituents here, they're not. And they want a choice to be either to go to faith-based or charter schools or private schools. they want an ability to be able to do that, and I believe they're entitled to that. And I know my opponent's been a huge proponent of not allowing that to happen.
Not just a proponent of it. When Jefferson County put school choice advocates into leadership, she actively worked to get rid of them. She's been one of the biggest teachers union, big government intervention into education proponents out there, and it's time to get her out of state leadership, frankly.
Well, I'm not arguing that with you.
No, I mean, Tammy Story's a real problem when it comes to this. And when the good people of Jefferson County got control of the school board, if you remember this, like 2014, 15-ish, and the teachers union just unleashed upon really good, talented people to harm them, personally try to rip their lives apart simply because they supported school choice. Tammy Story was a major part of that, and it's unfortunate that she's now into leadership. Well, let's talk about, I want to go back to safety real quick here. Denverite has an article out yesterday. Natural Grocers is closing Denver's Colfax Avenue store due to theft and safety issues. I mean, this isn't brand new news. This has been happening in our communities. They're less safe than they were previously. And I'll be honest, with what they've done to law enforcement, George Mumma, I don't know why anybody would go into it. I understand that they want to serve their communities. They want to make it safer. They took away qualified immunity. You make the wrong decision in law enforcement on a split second, you're going to spend the rest of your life in prison because these prosecutors and DAs are so itching to go after police. The state legislatures put in laws that make it less appealing. Finally, thank God for Advanced Colorado, who's trying to at least build a fund to recruit. But this has been purposeful. This has been a direct intent by our leaders to go after law enforcement, and I want to see somebody get into office that's going to back the blue. That's why I'm excited you're running. Tell us what you're going to do to back the blue.
Well, if you look at my history, I've backed the blue. I took a police agency in Morrison that had the worst reputation in the metro area, and we turned it around. When I retired from Morrison after being told that I had to write tickets for my budget, I took all my cops with me, and they're all in other law enforcement agencies here in the metro area. However, after 217 got passed, it made it difficult for policemen to be policemen. When you take the qualified immunity away, they don't do as much proactive policing, and that's what the constituents in 25 want. And just like you said, that's what the folks in Colorado want. I'll tell you a little story. My youngest son's the deputy down in Douglas County. He was a Jeffco deputy for a long time. Anyway, he ended up down there, down on the street. They got involved in a chase for the stolen vehicle. Stolen vehicle went all over the metro area. Not one police agency would assist him until the vehicle crashed and they took people into custody. Why? Because we have a no chase policy in most of these counties and in the metro area. So we let the bad guys go. And then when we have people that want to do proactive police work, the cops are so afraid to help each other for fear that they're going to get prosecuted that you're a lone ranger. That's not the way police work's supposed to work. We're supposed to work together with all of the law enforcement folks. So it's a problem. I'm huge on trying to back some of this stuff off so our law enforcement folks can do their jobs.
Woo! I like to hear that. Put the sheriff in. He's going to straighten things up down at the Colorado State Capitol. We're talking with George Mumma. He's a candidate for House District 25. His website is helpgeorgewin.com, helpgeorgewin.com. A few other questions for you, George. Let's talk about Second Amendment rights, an important issue in Colorado. Now, Colorado has traditionally been what I call socially libertarian, right? And as a social conservative, I often find myself on the wrong side of these issues, so I know it personally. But people, while we tend to vote liberal on some aspects, generally people want to be left alone with regards to their Second Amendment rights. Those have been under attack constantly down at the Colorado State Capitol. I can't believe they didn't get an assault weapons ban passed. That was remarkable that didn't happen. And thank God for organizations like Rocky Mountain Gun Owners who helped deliver that win for all of our Second Amendment rights. Talk about where you, as law enforcement, former law enforcement, fall along protecting the Second Amendment rights of Coloradans.
I believe those rights need to be protected 100%. I get crosswise with some folks from the standpoint from a law enforcement perspective. I believe in the background checks. I think that's okay. I don't want people to have a felony record for a person's crime to be running around with a gun. That just gives them the ability to commit more crime. However, I've been a firearms instructor for a little over 35, 40 years, and it's not the gun that jumps up and does the damage. It's poorly educated folks and mostly the criminals who are doing the damage. And
but, George, the vice presidential candidate, Tim Walz, said it's sometimes just the guns. I mean, that caught me off guard where I'm like, really? You believe sometimes it's just the guns? But please continue.
Well, I got to tell you, in all my career, in 45 years in law enforcement, I've never seen the gun jump off a table and do any damage. It had to be operated by somebody. So, yeah, I fully believe in what we've done. What happened this year was I don't even know how to explain it. It was terrible what we've done to the average citizen to be able to allow them to protect themselves. And we've got to get back to some semblance of normal and understand that if you have the training and you're able to run the tool, then you should be afforded the right to be able to do whatever you want. But having it anyway, because the Constitution says so, is very important to me. And we've got to get back to that. And if the other folks feel afraid, then get the education so you're not afraid anymore. I'm reminded of a story. My wife had a very close friend, and when she and I got together, they were all concerned that there were guns in our home because I was a cop. And my analogy was, well, what happens if your kid goes next door and those folks don't have security in their guns or they're laying around or whatever? Is your kid going to just pick it up because you've never talked to them about it and then have a problem? Well, once we had that conversation, we did a little education. They're very content with where they are now. And I think that's one of the biggest problems with the Second Amendment is you have it, but those who are scared of it, get some education so you're not afraid of it anymore.
George Mumma, candidate for House District 25 here in Colorado, joining Jeff and Bill live. I want to jump in the Wayback Machine with you a little bit, George. And you did a lot of public service. You put on the uniform, put on the badge. You protected the citizens here in Colorado for years. You've raised a beautiful family. Why in the world would you want to get into politics? And what I mean by this is, what was it? What's that instant? What's the emotion when you're sitting down there and you're looking across at your lovely wife and you're like, that's it. I'm sick and tired. I can't take this anymore. What was that core motivation that got you to stand up and say, yes, I've served Colorado with this uniform on, but now I got to go fight with those losers down under the Golden Dome? What was that issue? What was that moment?
Well, I'll tell you, I retired, and I'm totally faith-based. And there's nowhere in the Bible that talks about retirement. So,
oh, man, I'm screwed.
We sat and talked about it. The choices were, do we leave the state that we both grew up in, or do we get back in this fight? And I'm back in the fight. And that's the only way we're going to get things done is for brave people to stand up, go down there, and do what it takes to try and do what we believe in to get this state to a level that the people that we represent can feel confident that somebody's hearing them. I don't think our forefathers insisted on these people going down and staying at the Capitol for the rest of their lives. They wanted somebody that would go down, represent them, talk about the things that were important to them, move on, and let the next person come in. So that's where I'm at. That's what got me here, and I'm totally committed.
Now, if you, our listeners, listen here at the Jeff and Bill Show this morning, 925, if you like what you're hearing right there, that's George Mumma, candidate for House District 25. If you're in that district, you like what he's saying, this is your guy. That's why he got into politics. That's why he is going down there and he's going to fight for you. Now, George, what I want to talk to you about and ask you about is, what was the unexpected issue inside of your district that you've discovered out and about talking to voters, talking to your constituents? I know when you got into the race, you probably had an idea that, and 1, 2, 3, these are the things I'm most concerned about. But what's that issue that you've heard from voters that is bubbling up that may be ignored by most candidates, something that's important to your voters that many people aren't paying attention to?
Well, we talk about roads, and a lot of my district is in the mountains. And a number of the folks that have been calling me, especially in the last 2 weeks, heard our governor talk about buying 60 electric buses and running them up and down the mountains and doing all that. And they're saying, how are we going to do that when we're not going to fix the existing roads or deal with new infrastructure, but we're going to run these big, heavy buses up and down the mountains? They're going, how do I get down out of the mountains? I'm not going by bus. And what are you going to do to help me? So I hear them. I'm not sure how much we're going to be able to do something for that, because a lot of the roads are county roads, at least up in the mountains. But I'm hearing them, and I think we've got to bring that to the forefront and deal with what are we going to do with our transportation issues. The economy remains big with everyone that's called me. My constituents are big on that, and they're big on the schooling situation and their law enforcement. But that issue about the roads has been even out on the flat down here in the Dare Creek area, and especially up in the Evergreen Conifer area. If we're not going to do anything with the roads, those folks want to know how they're supposed to get down to the metro area. Seeing one of the folks that called me had been a former cop and said, you still use the same phone number you started law enforcement with, and you still pick up the phone. And that's the one thing I do. If you call me and I don't answer, I'll call you back. But if you call me and I'm available, I do answer the phone and I will talk to you. And that's been the big push.
Gosh, as somebody who spent a lot of time working down at the state capitol running a think tank, I will tell you most politicians are elected as bag boys or girls to deliver for special interest groups. It's frustrating. Votes are already decided. Bills aren't even written by the people who work down there. It's a process to deliver for major organizations that